We begin our service with Hevenu Shalom Aleichem on page 644. Got to go to the back of the book, 644, all the way back. Get those fingers a turning, and we will join together.
Hevenu Shalom Aleichem, Hevenu Shalom Aleichem, Hevenu Shalom Aleichem, Hevenu Shalom, Shalom, Shalom Aleichem, Hevenu Shalom Aleichem, Hevenu Shalom Aleichem, Hevenu Shalom Aleichem, Hevenu Shalom, Shalom, Shalom Aleichem.
And we'll turn now to page 128. So all the way back. Getting the workout already. Let your fingers do the walking.
This is for Yiddi Nefesh.
Yedid Nefesh.
Yiddi Nefesh. Yiddi Nefesh v'rachaman. Yiddi Nefesh v'rachaman. Meshoch avdecha. Eretz onecha. Mishoch avdecha. Ya la 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 la. El ratzonecha. Yaru avdecha. Kemo aya. Ishtachav la ya la 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 emu adarecha.
Continuing our journey backwards in the Siddur, we're on page 120 and 121 as we call to come forward Barbara Bachman and Denise Kirschbaum for the candles and Kiddush as we welcome Shabbat with light and sweetness. Let's rise together. Muchas gracias. You got it. Just remember speaking to the mic.
As these Shabbat candles, oh, sorry, okay. I've talked loud enough. Okay. As these Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we, by our lives, give light to all who behold us. As their brightness reminds us of all the generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we in our own day be among those who kindle light. Hang on, guys. Yeah, making me work for my living here. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
with mitzvot, commanding us to kindle the lights of Shabbat.
Amen.
Turn to page 122.
Yeah, you tell them.
Vayahi erev, vayahi voker, yom hashishi. The heaven and the earth were finished and all their array. On the seventh day, God finished the work that God had been doing, and God ceased on the seventh day from all the work that God had done. And God blessed the seventh day and declared it holy, because on it God ceased from all the work of creation that God had done. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu, v'shabbat kodsho b'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu, zikaron lema'aseh v'reishit, ki hu yom techila lamikrae kodesh, zecher letziyat Mitzrayim. Kivanu v'acharta v'otanu kidashta mikol ha'amim v'shabbat kodshecha b'ahava uvratzon hinchaltanu. Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh haShabbat. Amen.
Chaim. Good vintage today? Excellent. Okay. Let's take our seats. And let's turn to page 127 as we'll continue responsively. There are days when we think for only of ourselves and measure failure by what we do not gain. Together, on Shabbat,
we seek not to acquire, but to share.
there are days when we exploit nature as if it were a horn of plenty that can never be exhausted.
On Shabbat, we stand in wonder before the mystery of creation.
There are days when we act as if we cared nothing for the rights of others.
On Shabbat, we remember that justice is our duty and a better world our goal.
So we embrace Shabbat, day of rest, day of wonder, day of peace. Let's turn now to page 138 and 139 for the singing of Lecha Dodi, this mystical piyut, this poem that was created by the Kabbalists, really fantastic, imagining Shabbat as a bride or as a queen that we greet during Shabbat as we complete each other. We have to go out and greet Shabbat. Shabbat then comes to us, and we get to enjoy it together. Page 138, 139, paragraphs 1, 2, 5, and 9. And the final verse will rise together, and we'll face the door to greet said Shabbat bride.
Lichat dodi likrat kala, yalalai, 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 v'nei Shabbat. Nekabela, dai, dai, dai. Lichat dodi likrat kala, yalalai, 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 v'nei Shabbat. Nekabela, shamor v'zachor, bedibur echad. Hishmi'anu el ha'miyuchad Adonai echad u'shmo echad l'shem ultiferet ve'lihitila lichad dodi ligrat kala yalalai 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 v'nei Shabbat Nikabela, day, 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 lichat dodi likrat kala, yalalai, 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 v'nei Shabbat. נקבלה. לקראת שבת לכו ונלכה, כי היא מקור הברכה. מראש מקדם ניסוחה, סוף מעשה במחשבה תחילה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, יללי יללי יללי, פני שבת נקבלה. די די די, לך דודי לקראת כלה, יללי יללי יללי, פני שבת נקבלה. התעוררי, התעוררי, כי באורך קומי אורי, 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 שיר דברי, כבוד אדוני עלייך נגלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, יללי יללי יללי, פני שבת נקבלה. די די די, לך דודי לקראת כלה, יללי יללי יללי, פני שבת נקבלה. בואי ושלום עטרת בלה, גם בשמחה וצהולה. תוך אמוני עם סגולה, בואי חלה, בואי חלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, יללי יללי יללי, פני שבת נקבלה. די די די, לך דודי לקראת כלה, יללי יללי יללי, פני שבת נקבלה.
Let's remain standing as we turn to page 146 for the Baruch Hu, our call to worship. We're going to focus our mind, focus our energy on welcoming Shabbat, and now getting to this point of the service, we think about the praise of God. You know, during the Shabbat service, we speak about all the reasons God should be praised. God is the creator, God is the revealer of Torah, God is the redeemer of the people of Israel. The Baruch Hu says God is to be praised because God is to be praised. It's very straightforward, you know, because God is the one who deserves the praise. And so we're going to turn now and face the ark as we join together with Baruch Hu.
Yana lai lai lai, 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 yana lai lai lai. Am I awake? Am I prepared? Are you listening to my prayer? Can you hear my voice? Can you understand? Am I awake? Am I prepared? Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed, le'olam va'ed. Yalla lai lai lai, yalla lai lai lai, yalla lai lai lai, yalla lai lai lai, yalla lai lai lai. la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la.
Please be seated. On page 148, let's continue in the Hebrew. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bidvaro ma'ariv aravim, b'chokhmah poteach she'arim, uvitvuna mishane itim, umachalif et hazmanim, umisader et hakochavim, b'mishmerotehem barakia kirtzono. Borei yom v'layla, golel or mipnei choshech, v'choshech mipnei or. Uma'avir yom u'me'vi layla, uma'avdil ben yom u'vein layla, Adonai tzvaot shemo. El chai v'kayam tamid yimloch aleinu le'olam va'ed, Baruch atah Adonai hama'ariv aravim. On page 151. At the top of the page. As you taught Torah to those whose names I bear, teach me Torah too. Its mystery beckons, yet I struggle with its truth. You meant Torah for me. Did you mean the struggle for me too? Together. Don't let me struggle alone. Help me to understand, to be wise, to listen, to know. Lead me into the mystery. Baruch atah Adonai, ohev amo Yisrael. The next page, let's rise together for the Shema.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. 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 Baruch Shem Kivod Malchuto, Leolam Vaed. Baruch Shem Kivod Malchuto, Leolam Vaed. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Please be seated. We are on page 154 as we continue together with the Via Hafta.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתן לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
Please turn to page 157 in the middle of the page. In a world torn by violence and pain, a world far from wholeness and peace, Give us the courage to say, Adonai, there is one God in heaven and earth. Together, the high heavens declare your glory. May earth reveal your justice and love. From bondage in Egypt we were delivered. At Sinai we bound ourselves to your way. Inspired by prophets and instructed by sages, time and again we overcame oppressive forces. Though our failings are many and our faults are great, it has been our glory to bear witness to our God, keeping alive in dark ages your vision of a world redeemed. Let us continue to work for the day when the nations will be one and at peace. Then shall we rejoice as Israel did, singing on the shores of the sea. On the next page, Micha Mocha.
Yai lai lai ya la 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 lai ya lai la 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 lai lai ya lai la lai lai ya la 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 ya la lai la lai la lai lai Micha mocha ba elim Adonai Micha mocha ne'eta b'kodesh Norat tehilot osef eleh Norat tehilot osef eleh Malachot qara'u banecha Bochei ayam livnei Moshe v'Miriam Ze'eli anu ve'amru Ze'eli anu ve'amru Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed Yai lai lai ya la 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 lai Yai lai lai la lai la 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 lai lai Ya lai la lai lai ya la 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 Yai la lai la 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 lai la
We now turn to page 160 as we continue with a prayer asking for God to spread the sukkah, that shelter of peace, that shelter of protection over all of us, over those we love, over the entire world. Hashkivenu.
Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom V'hamidenu shomreinu l'chaim Spread the shelter of your peace over us Guide us in wisdom, compassion, and trust. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom V'hamidenu shomreinu l'chaim Save us for the sake of your name. Shield us from hatred, from sorrow and pain. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom V'hamidenu shomreinu l'chaim l'chaim
We now turn to page 162 as we celebrate the gift of Shabbat with Yismechu. 5 points. Okay.
Out of my drums. Gonna use a little. Yismechu v'malechutecha Shomre, shomre, shomre Shabbat v'kore oneg Shabbat Yismechu v'malechutecha Shomre, shomre, shomre Shabbat v'kore oneg Shabbat מקדשי שבי שבת כולם ישמעו ויתענגו מטובך שבת ישמחו במלכותך שומרי 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 שבת וקורא עונג שבת ישמחו במלכותך שומרי 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 שבת וקורא עונג שבת והשביעי רצית בו וקידשתו שבת חמדת ימים אמינותו קראת שבת ישמחו במלכותך שומרי 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 שבת וקורא עונג שבת ישמחו במלכותך שומרי 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 שבת וקורא עונג שבת זכר למעשה בראשית שבת זכר למעשה בראשית שבת ישמחו במלכותך שומרי 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 שבת וקורא עונג שבת ישמחו במלכותך שומרי 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 שבת וקורא עונג שבת.
They don't trust me with a tambourine, but you know, Maria knows. She gets it. Okay. We're going to continue on page 165. In an envelope marked personal, God addressed me a letter. In an envelope marked personal, I have given my answer. Let's rise together for the Amidah HaTefilah, page 164 through page 170 in the Hebrew.
Adonai sifatai tiftach ufi yagi tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu ve'imotenu Elohei Avraham Elohei Yitzchak ve'Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel ve'Elohei Leah Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanora El Elyon Gomel Chasadim Tovim V'Konei Hakol V'Zocher Chastei Avot ve'Imahot U'Mevi Geula Livnei V'neihem L'ma'an Shemo B'Ahava Melech Uzer U'Moshia U'Magen Baruch Atah Adonai Magen Avraham ve'Ezrat Sarah אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי הכל אתה, רב להושיע, מוריד הטל. מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים. סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסירים, ומקיים אמונתו לישני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומי דומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה ומצמיח ישועה. ונאמן אתה להחיות הכל, ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי הכל. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש.
Please be seated. We're on page 177 for a little moment of gratitude and appreciation, our Hoda'ah prayer. Let's continue together at the top of the page. God of goodness, we give thanks for the gift of life, wonder beyond words, for the awareness of soul, our light within, for the world around us so filled with beauty, for the richness of the earth which day by day sustains us. For all these and more we offer thanks. Baruch atah Adonai, hatov shemcha ulecha na'eh lehodot. We're on page 178, a prayer for peace, Shalom Rav.
Shalom Rav, Yisrael Amcha, Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav, Yisrael Amcha, Tasim Leolam. Ki ata hu melech Adon, לכל השלום, כי אתה הוא מלך אדון, לכל השלום. שלום רב, הישראל עמך, תשים לעולם. שלום רב, ישראל עמך, תשים לעולם. וטוב בעיניך לברך את עמך ישראל, בכל עת ובכל שעה, בשלומך. שלום רב, ישראל עמך, תשים לעולם. שלום רב, ישראל עמך, תשים לעולם. תשים לעולם. תשים לעולם.
We're now going to turn to page 371 as we pray for the healing of the world. We're now going to take a moment to pray for the healing of body, mind, and spirit. We're going to think about those in our community, our loved ones who are in need of healing, whether they are in need of physical, mental, or spiritual healing. We take them into our hearts at this time of prayer. On page 371, let's join together in the middle of the page, Mishaberach.
Mishaberach שבירך אבותינו, מקור הברכה לאמותינו. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen.
We are thinking of and wishing a refuah shlema, a complete healing of body, mind, and spirit, to Pat Adamson, Eric Adler, Raymond Douglas Alcorn, Hannah Ays and Erwin Ays, Marty Bilo, Evan Bin, Frankie Clement, John Conway, Ann Cole, Richard Corwin, Mark Edelstein, Mickey Edelstein, Benjamin Edelstein, and Brian Edelstein, Danielle Heyman Feist, Eric Fisk, Bob Gold and Carolyn Gold, Jennifer Gousset, Barbara Green and Buddy Green, Marvin Hollander, Robert Jaffe, Stuart J., Lori Cattleman, Hank Corin, Wendy Sugarman Krosnoff, Dr. Sonia Linke, Michael Lynch, Dolores Munsick, Ruth Poehler, Don Rolander, Lee Siegel, Stacy Siegel, Charlie Siegel, and Brody Siegel, Dr. Cindy Steinman, Pete Tanner, Fred Truax, and Michael Vereb. If you're thinking of someone at this moment you'd like to mention for this special prayer of healing, please speak their name as my eyes meet yours.
Doris Kirshner, Philip Gelman, Paul Kramer.
Taking these names into our hearts with all of those mentioned at home, we continue as we pray.
Mi shebeirach imotenu, makor habracha le'avotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
We continue with Tefillat Halev, the prayer of the heart.
יהיו לרצון אמרי פי והגיון ליבי לפניך אדוני צורי וגואלי אדוני צורי וגואלי
We're now going to turn to page 363, because it's Torah time today. 363, Seder Kriyat Torah, the service for the reading of the Torah. Okay, man?
Here we go.
Okay. Assemble the people, the men, women, and the children, and the strangers in your cities, to hear, to learn, to revere Adonai, your God, to observe faithfully the words of this Torah, and let their children who do not yet know it hear, that they too may learn to revere Adonai, your God. We're going to call to come forward Fran Krutchik to open the ark with Sandy Sunter. Let us rise together. We're on 364.
In kamocha ve'elohim Adonai ve'in kemasecha malchutecha malchut kol olamim u'menshaltecha bechol dor vador Adonai melech Adonai malach Adonai timloch leolam va'ed. Ki mitzion tetzei Torah Ki mitzion tetzei Torah Udevar Adonai meYerushalayim Baruch Shenatan Torah Torah Baruch Shenatan Torah Torah Und O Israel Bikdushato Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad Echad Eloheinu Gadol Adonenu Kadosh Shemo Gadalu Adonai iti Uroma Shemo Yachdav Lecha Adonai Hagedula V'Hagevura V'Hatiferet V'Hanetzach V'Hahod Ki kol bashamayim uvaret Ki kol bashamayim uvaret Lecha Adonai hamamlacha V'hamid naseh lechol rosh Al shlosha divarim Al shlosha divarim Al shlosha divarim Ha'olam omein Al shlosha divarim Al shlosha divarim Al shlosha divarim Ha'olam omeid Al hadara ve'al ha'avoda ve'al gemilut chazadim Al hadara ועל העבודה ועל גמילות חסדים. על שלושה דברים, על שלושה דברים, על שלושה דברים העולם עומד. על שלושה, your turn. על שלושה דברים, על שלושה דברים העולם עומד. Great,
We got there. We can take our seats. Okay, that looks good. Our Torah portion this week is Parshat Shoftim. Parshat Shoftim, it's about judges and the administration of justice for the most part. We're not going to read about that. We're read about something else that I think is a little bit fun in the middle of this Torah portion. And it has a really great quote in the middle of it, which we're going to come back to a little later on after we read a little bit of Torah, as we used to say in Brooklyn. So, I'm from Queens, it still counts. With all of that said, we're going to call to come up for our Aliyah, Tony Rindy. And John, you're welcome to come up with her, of course, as well. For our Torah blessings, we're going to be starting with Deuteronomy 18, verse 9. And we got the blessing right here. We're going to be starting right here, if you would like to touch the scroll. Very nice.
Baruch et Adonai Hambarach.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach Leolam Voed.
Baruch Adonai Hambarach Leolam Vaed. Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'notan lanu et Torato. Baruch Ata Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Grab it, it's me right there. Thank you so much. And now let's see what we got. Hold on here, let's go. Judge that a little. Okay. You gonna check me?
I do.
No, I'm just kidding.
I do.
What's that word over there? Okay.
Let's do it together.
Let's do it
How's
together. Yeah, we can do a duet. Ki ata ba el haaretz asher Adonai Elohecha noten lach lo tilmad la'asot ketoavot hagoyim hahem. So when you come into this land that Adonai your God is giving to you, do not learn, do not do the practices that these are abominations of the Gentiles, of the other nations that are there. Not really Gentiles at that point, other nations that are there. That's a little modern anachronism there, but yes, the other nations that are there. Lo yimatzeh v'cha ma'avir beno v'to ba'esh. Very pleasant. There should not be found among any of you one who will pass their son or their daughter through the fire. It's basically child sacrifice. Don't do that. Should be pretty self-explanatory, but God and most want to make sure, don't do that. It's not the right thing.
Not nice.
Not nice. You know, you got other things to do. Adults, no, not them either. But, you know. And so what else? So that one's out. We're not going to do that. Kosem kisamim me'onen u'menachesh u'mechashef. Okay, so we've got a lot of people here. We don't want to do what they do. So the kosem kisamim, it's all about like divination, right? So these are sort of the magical sort of sorcerers. This one in particular, Kosem Kisamim, is likely somebody who observes the patterns of birds to tell the future. Or could be those who throw sticks onto the ground, and by the pattern, they use it to sort of divine the future. Or my personal favorite, the one who disembowels animals and uses their guts and entrails to predict the future. I did not learn that in seminary. I'm pretty glad for that. The me'onain is the soothsayer. Does a lot of sooth. He says sooth. And it's probably somebody who looks to the skies for guidance, looks for the skies. Anan, you hear the word anan in there. The anan means cloud in Hebrew. So the me'onain is someone literally with their head in the clouds. Not a lot of respect, I think, being shown for these folks. The minachesh, that's an interesting one. It is probably closer to a hydromancer, somebody who divines via water. That's one interpretation. I don't like that one, actually. The other one I prefer, because nachash is in there. And nachash, for 5 points, is a animal. Nachash, snake. Snake is a nachash. A snake handler, a snake charmer, perhaps. Hadag Nachash, you can Google when you get home. Very famous Israeli hip-hop band back in the day. Still good now, but good then too. Very, very good band. The Michashef, that one's a little bit more, it's like a sorcerer. It doesn't really have a lot of detail to it, but it's someone who practices magic. Okay, we still got some more folks to go, though. V'chover chaver, v'sho'el ov, v'yidoni, v'doresh el hametim. So we have here, the chover is somebody who sort of talks to spirits. He sort of tries to do that kind of work. The Shoel Ov Vidoni is very similar. Somebody who is asking ghosts, asking sort of the spirit world for guidance. Very famously, King Saul went to one of these people during his reign as king. He didn't last much longer after that, because God was not amused at him going to such a diviner. It wasn't his last mistake, but, it was on the list. So good King Saul didn't make it to the end. King David came later, and he was the one, of course, who the line is descended. And the Doresh el-Mehametim, very similar still. It's the ones who talk to dead people. Yeah. Sort of the Haley Joel Osment, I see dead people, Sixth Sense, great movie. Again, Google. It's fantastic if you haven't seen it. And actually, there are people today, ironically enough, given the passage here, in the Jewish community who actually do this still. The Doresh el-Meitim, the Hasidic, actually, are the ones who engage in this practice. They go to the Rebbe's grave and they'll lie down on the grave and hope to speak through him by lying on the gravesite. Also, don't recommend, but if it works for them, it's fine for me. Ki to'avat Adonai kol oseh ele, because it is an abomination to God, all who do this. Ubiglal hatoevot ha'ele Adonai Elohecha morish otam mipanecha, and because they're doing all of these abominations, all these abominable things, Adonai, your God, is dispossessing them from before you. The line we're going to be coming back to a little later. Ta'amim tihyeh im Adonai Elohecha. You shall always be wholehearted with Adonai your God. Ki hagoyim ha'ele asher ata yoreshotam, for the nations which you are going to dispossess. Al me'onanim ve'al ha'kosmim yishme'u. They listen to these soothsayers and these magicians and diviners. They listen to them. Ve'ata lochein, and for you not so much. Noten lecha Adonai Elohecha. Your God has not given these to you. We have other folks called prophets, and Moses and God. We don't have to be handling snakes or trying to read water or birds. We got other things to do with our time. So with that being said, we're going to finish up with the blessing. Then we're going to talk a little bit more about being wholehearted with God, what that means. Tony, please take it away.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam nata b'tocheinu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Amen. Thank you both. Shkoich. Very nice. Now we're going to rise together for Hagba and Galila. Until I get a weightlifter here, we're going to do a muted Hagba and Galila. Can you give me a little Vizot HaTorah?
Yes. Vizot HaTorah asher samach b'nei b'nei Yisrael al pi Adonai v'yad Moshe.
When it's in Leviticus, I'll do a Hagba. Deuteronomy so much. Can you pass me, please, the cover? Actually, Sandy, I'm going to walk to you.
Go here.
I'm going to walk to you.
Go here.
We can take our seats. Does anyone know why we rise when the ark is opened in particular? Why we rise when the ark is opened in particular? Respect is good. It's actually almost like it's like a stretch beforehand, because really we're supposed to be up when the Torah is in motion. When the Torah is in the ark, you actually, technically speaking, don't have to stand up, but it's a good practice to get there. So you're ready for when the Torah is taken out of the ark and moved around. So when the Torah is in motion, technically, and when it's put down and it is prepared, you can sit down from there. But when the Torah is up, we're up. When the Torah is moving, we have to be up as well. It's just one of those ancient practices. And so it's good to give yourself a little cushion. So when the ark is opened, good time to stand up, because we're getting ready, as you said, with respect and honor and reverence to embrace Torah and bring it into our community. Just a little extra, no charge, a little extra Torah tonight. Okay. We have our Daf Torah, or Daf Limud here, our page of Torah. It really is a great phrase. It's actually one of the reasons why I read that portion of the Torah is that I wanted to get this verse in, the Tamim Tihyeh Imad Elohecha, because, the rest of it, the diviners, the soothsayers, it's fun, but, there are other parts of the Torah that are perhaps more relevant than worrying about, Harry Potter and his friends, as they were doing. But this line, I think, is really important and really interesting. And so I thought we'd dive into it a little bit, because the idea of being wholehearted, being tamim with God, I thought was a fascinating concept. Like, what does that mean? Because we see this word tamim appear multiple times, many times, I should say, in the Torah, the idea of completeness. It's not shalom. Shalom is a different kind of spiritual, wholeness, whereas tamim can be seen more as a physical wholeness in a way, which is why it's interesting here. Tamim, you should always be, you should forever be, you should, wholly with a W-H, you should wholly be with God. And Abraham, this word gets attributed to Abraham, more famously attributed to Jacob. Jacob is whole with God, which is in itself very interesting for another sermon for another day. But the idea of Jacob's wholeness with God, what does that actually mean? So, of course, the rabbinic commentators, like me, are fascinated with this verse. I wasn't the first one to be curious about it, apparently. There were many other people before me who really loved this line. And so we're going to take a couple of looks at some of these different rabbinic commentators, these interpreters of Torah, to see what they have to say about it. So the first one's sort of easy because it's contextual. It's actually from the Torah portion itself. This is Ramban, Nachmanides, Spanish medieval philosopher and theologian, mathematician, a lot of good stuff. He was pretty busy. He said, "You must be wholehearted with Adonai, your God. The meaning thereof is that we are to direct our hearts to God only and believe that God alone does everything. It is God who knows the truth about all future events, and from God's prophets or even God's pious ones, as we are to inquire to them about future events. Not, Joe Schmo down the corner with a tarot card or a Ouija board. That's not what we're supposed to be doing. We're supposed to go with Again, God's prophets, the pious ones, the teachers, or God, of course, God's self, to learn about the future. We're not to inquire of the astrologers or from anyone else, or by any means to trust that their words will be fulfilled. Throughout those horoscopes, people. That's what Nachmanides is telling you. It doesn't really matter the position of the stars on your day. You'll be all right, That being said, by the way, if in January, on a Wednesday night, you feel a little bored, I'm going to be teaching a 6-week course all about Jewish magic and superstition. And there actually is a part on astrology, because surprisingly enough, we were in that too. And so that's a cheap plug for my class coming up in January. There's a method to the madness. So pay attention for that. So Ramban here again, very clear, right? We have this verse here. This is a very simple explanation. Don't do all this other stuff that other folks are doing with visiting, diviners and soothsayers and magicians. Like only God knows. And perhaps, as Ramban says, the prophets or the different rabbis, teachers, scholars, chassids, whoever we're defining as God's pious, talk to them about the future. Don't put your faith in, as Ramban would probably not say, because he didn't have Yiddish, mishigas. Don't do that. That was not Ramban's quote. We won't have it there. Okay, Kav HaYashar, it's another sort of text a little bit later on, and we see our friend Jacob does make an appearance here. You must be wholehearted with Adonai your God. You must know that the trait of wholeheartedness is the loftiest of all the praiseworthy qualities and traits that a person must acquire. Therefore, it states regarding our forefather Jacob, and Jacob was a wholehearted man dwelling in tents. For if a person is humble, but has the flaw of pursuing wealth, or if one yearns for a certain sin, you should never yearn for a sin, but it happens. We yearn for a sin. That's why we have Yom Kippur coming up. They are not whole in their deeds. Such a person is likened to a beautiful vessel with many chips and cracks. But if a person is wholehearted and complete in every praiseworthy trait, and is God-fearing and beloved and charitable, dwelling in the earthly tents of Torah and toiling in Torah by night, then when their soul expires, they will merit dwelling in the heavenly tent. It all comes back to the tent, right? And so it's a really interesting passage, again, connecting to Jacob, this idea, what does it mean to be whole with God? Is to act in such that way where you're connected. You have a relationship with the divine. You're trying to act in, as it's defined sort of in the end, in a God-fearing, beloved, charitable way, trying to be in better sense, a mensch. Live a menschy life, a studious life, a righteous life, a holy life. Do that, and you are wholehearted. That's what it means to be wholehearted with God. It's nice. And then if you do that down here, like Jacob did, there is a heavenly reward afterwards. This idea of the eternal connection with God, that we are whole here and we'll be whole then in the afterlife. If we flip over, we're going to get to my favorite two of the bunch. That's why we saved them for last. The last two are also going chronologically as well, to be fair. Duties of the heart, written by... Jeopardy question for you, written by Bachia ibn Pekuda, a Jewish scholar. I know everyone knew that. Beth knew it. Bachia ibn Pekuda. She and I study this all the time together. So Bachia, good person to study, by the way. The book is in English and Hebrew. You should realize that the aim and value of the duties of the heart is that our exterior and our interior be equal and consistent in the service of God, so that the testimony of the heart, tongue, and limbs be alike, that they support and confirm each other instead of differing and contradicting each other. This is what the scripture calls tamim, in saying you must be wholehearted with Adonai, your God. I just love this passage, this idea of our interior and exterior have to be whole, have to be complete, have to be together. Because sometimes our tongue might say, I'm going to do this mitzvah. And our legs say, no, because my couch is comfortable. Sometimes our heart might say we're going to do something, but then we might overthink, And our brain might say, maybe this isn't the most prudent or wise, or I'm just going to maybe give it a little time and see what happens, even if my heart is pulling in this direction to maybe do something. So there's a great midrash that I like. It's about the Ark of the Covenant, actually. It speaks about the idea that the Ark is plated with gold on the outside, but there's also gold on the inside. And the rabbis ask, what's the point of the gold on the inside? No one sees in there. You saw Indiana Jones. You can't open up the Ark of the Covenant anyway to see inside, or else you get your face melted. That was what was the movie? The first one, Raiders of the Lost Ark. So, you can't see inside anyway, so why do they have the gold? Well, and they teach the same thing. It shows that the inner and the out must be the same, right? We can't have hypocrisy, the idea of our outside being golden, and we're saying the right things, and we're doing the right things, but inside we're like, bleh, we don't want to do any of this stuff. Or the opposite, where maybe like we're saying in our hearts we'll do something, but outside we don't actually fix it. We just sort of go, oh, isn't that a shame? And then we do something else. That's not what you want. And so Bachya ibn Pakuda would teach us, that's not how we should live our lives. We have to live our lives with a sense of authenticity, a sense of legitimacy, that it has to match, it has to be together, that when we have the opportunity to serve God, to do a mitzvah, to do a good deed, to be out there in the world helping, do it. Go and do, and help make the world a better place. And so that is that. But now, because it's that time of year, it's beginning to look a lot like the high holidays. We're getting closer and closer to our season. I thought it would be good to end with Harold Kushner, Rabbi Harold Kushner, in a really great book, How Good Do We Have to Be? A really good book, recommended as well. So he has this idea, well, what does it mean to be whole with God? What does that mean? Because it can be a very daunting idea, daunting task of this wholeness with God. And so Rabbi Kushner, as he does so many times, gives a fantastic interpretation of this passage, and here relating to Abraham, because Abraham also is called Tamim, to be told to be whole with God. And so that, I believe, was what God asked of Abraham, not to be perfect, because wholeness does not always equal perfection. In fact, it rarely does. Not to be perfect, don't ever make a mistake, but be whole. To be whole before God means to stand before God with all of our faults as well as all of our virtues, and to hear the message of our acceptability. Know what is good and what is evil, and when you do wrong, realize that was not the essential you. It was because the challenge of being human is so great that no one gets it right every time. God asks no more of us than that. And it's really a beautiful message as we enter into the season. We just got into Rosh Chodesh Elul. We are in this period of Cheshbon HaNefesh, the idea of an accounting of the soul. We have to think about what we did in the past year, what we did right, what we did wrong, what could we have done differently. And by doing that accounting, we think of how we can be better in the next year. It prepares us for Rosh Hashanah, for Yom Kippur, to do the work of teshuvah, to do the work of repentance. And so we need that preparatory time. And as Rabbi Kushner says here, we make the mistakes. We're not perfect. That's the joy and the challenge of being human, of being mortal. We're going to make mistakes. And that's okay. It happens. We're not meant to be perfect. But what we are meant to do is to be reflective and to be thoughtful, to be contemplative, and to be accountable. To remember that we can make the mistakes, but then we also have to work to fix the mistakes, to repair those errors. And that is what wholeness really means, because it says in the Talmud that God is closest to whom? The brokenhearted, the ones who are not whole yet, because God knows that they have work to do to mend the brokenness, to mend the broken heart, to get closer to Tamim, to get closer to wholeness again. And that's what this time of year is all about. It's getting close to wholeness again. Holiness, yes, but wholeness as well. To mend our brokenness, to mend the brokenness in our relationships, and to try to move slowly, la'at la'at, we say in Hebrew, slowly, to wholeness with ourselves, with our community, and with God. Shabbat Shalom. We're going to turn now to page 586 as we rise together for Aleinu. We're going to open the ark. Up. I do, in fact, want to put the Torah back. So 374 would be first. We correct our mistakes. 374, Eitz Chaim Hi, and then Aleinu 586.
Eitz Chaim Hi למחזיקים בה ותומכך מאושר דרכיה דרכי נועם וכל נתיבותיך שלום השיבנו אדוני אליך ונשובה חדש ימינו חדש ימינו כקדם
Page 586, Aleinu.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד.
We're on page 594. It is a fearful thing to love what death can touch, a fearful thing to love, to hope, to dream, to be and oh, to lose. A thing for fools this and a holy thing to love. For your life has lived in me, your laugh once lifted me, your word was gift to me. To remember this brings a painful joy. 'Tis a human thing, love, a holy thing, to love what death has touched. The congregation was saddened to announce the passing of our member, Fran Brickman, who passed away yesterday. And so we're in the process of getting the arrangements made for the funeral. It looks like it's going to be Sunday at 10 o'clock, and not this Sunday, next Sunday at 10. But an email will go out with all of the details. So we send our condolences out to Joe and to his family, and also to our TBI community who remember Fran as such an active volunteer, such a warm presence. She was in the choir. We were sort of talking about it, and it was mentioned that some of our members here now remember her as their Hebrew school teacher back in the day. So Fran was here for a very long time and made so many friends and connections, and she will be sorely missed. We are in the Shiva period for the memory of David Roderick, the brother-in-law of Barbara Bachman, and also we're in that same Shiva period for the memory of Linda Laban Slavinsky, stepmom to Leah Slavinsky. We are observing the yurtzeit this week of Betty Lou Backhout, Andrea Boardman, Ralph Eli Bobo, Maurice Brickman, Henry Bronstein, Maria J. Bruno, Lena Bryan, Ephraim Cohen, Evelyn Cohen, Louise Helen Cohn, Michael Gigliotti, Hilda Ginsburg, Beatrice Glass, David Green, Isidore Gross, Henry Hechtman, Edwin Jacobson, Hyman Kaplan, Samuel Casper, Shirley H. Castell, Raphael Bon Kogan, Pauline Krutchik, Nathan Lefkowitz, Noah Lukin, Joseph Marks, Jacob Matz, Charles McLaren, Janet Nelms, Renata Newmark, Ann Nicholson, Edith Poehler, Walter Porgus, George Posnack, Andrea Reitzen, Joyce Schaefer, William Schneider, Sarah Schumann, Beatrice Shinitsky, Daniel Sokol, Isidore Tandatnik, Shirley Yarmaloff, and Rosalind H. Young. Is there anyone observing a yurtzeit, saying Kaddish for any reason? I wanted to mention that Monday marks the 50th anniversary of the murder of 11 Israeli athletes in Munich, the 1972 Olympics. And so we're just going to mention that today, and may, of course, all of their memories be for a blessing as well. We're going to rise together now, 598, Kaddish Yatom, the Mourner's Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei rabba, b'yalma divrach cherutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, b'gala v'izman kari v'imru amen, yehei shemei rabba mevorach le'olam l'almei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yithalal shemei dekudisha barichu, Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushvechata v'nechemata, da'amiran b'yama v'imru amen, yehei shloma rabba min shemaya v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen, oseh shalom b'mromav, huya aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. May the one who creates harmony on high bring peace to us, to Israel, and all of the world, as together we say, amen. Please be seated. It is my pleasure to call to come forward our temple co-president, Sandy Sunter, for a few synagogue announcements.
Thank you. Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Thank you. I'm so happy to see familiar faces, and I'm very pleased to see some new faces, so Shabbat Shalom to everyone. And I hope everyone will join us for our oneg in our next room. Again, Rabbi, thank you. That really was very, very good. I really enjoyed that. I loved that story, and I love how you gave it to us tonight. And Beth, thank you very much for your beautiful music. And Maria, of course, thank you for your beautiful music as well. And I want to thank, I think Pete was helping us stream tonight from home. So thank you. And again, Shabbat up to him. Now, September the 17th, if you don't have it on your calendar, please put it on your calendar. That is the day at 6:30 that we will be coming to the synagogue and dedicating our sanctuary to our beloved Rabbi Daniel Treiser of blessed memory. After the dedication, which will prove to be a lovely, lovely event, we will be coming together here in our sanctuary to celebrate Slichot, beginning of our high holiday season, changing of the Torah covers, praying with one another, singing with one another, and just being able to spend that type of an evening together with one. It should be a very special evening, and there'll be a special oneg afterwards for everybody to get together and find time to just kibitz. I hope everyone received your high holiday packets. If you did not, please call the office. I'm hoping everybody did receive theirs. I want again to remind you to keep your tickets. It has all of the different activities that are going to be happening during our high holidays. This year, we are going to be having our Rosh Hashanah luncheon again. So please, 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 RSVP. If you're going to be able to attend, please do RSVP so that we can prepare and have plenty of food for everybody who attends. So please be mindful of remembering to RSVP. The next other thing that's really important is our casino night. And that is going to be October the 29th. And this is one of our biggest events that we do every year, and we have for quite a few years. First of all, we want people to come. So please go on your website, our website, sign up for it. It's $60 for a ticket. If you do it before October the 29th, it's $75 at the door, so you get a little deal. But it's a wonderful evening. It's fun, games, food, just having fun with one another. We also, if anyone is interested in being a sponsor, we are asking anyone or anyone's or businesses that would like to be a sponsor, please, please let us know. You should have gotten that information in our pamphlets and to let you know the different levels of sponsorship. So please do that. Also, we're also asking for anybody who would like to we need some silent auction items. And I was kind of thinking, like for me, maybe I'll see if my family wants to do something together. And maybe a group of my friends might want to do a silent auction thing together. So if anyone would like to do that and would like to talk about it, I mean, count me in. And let's try to get some really good silent auction items so that we have those to share at our event. It is fun. Please, we hope everyone will attend. Also, as I always say, please remember to look at your e-blasts so you know everything that's going on. I also wanted to share, I usually like to share a little something, and as Rabbi mentioned, our dear friend Fran passed away. And again, Fran is someone that I've known for many years, but I didn't know until more recently and had the opportunity to become more friends than acquaintances. So I was very sad, as we all are. But it made me think about how important our relationships are and our friendships are. And again, for me, being more active, coming back to my temple has filled me beyond what I can ever say, and having friends like Fran. So I'd like to just share this. This is also from Rabbi Harold Kushner. It's only our relationships endure. I was sitting on a beach one summer day, watching two children, a boy and a girl, playing in the sand. They were hard at work building an elaborate sand castle by the water's edge, with gates and towers and moats and internal passages. Just when they had nearly finished their project, a big wave came along and knocked it down, reducing it to a heap of wet sand. I expected the children to burst into tears, devastated by what had happened to all of their hard work. But they surprised me. Instead, they ran up to the shore away from the water, laughing and holding hands, and sat down to build another castle. I realized that they had taught me an important lesson. All the things in our lives, all the complicated structures we spend so much time and energy creating, are built on sand. Only our relationships to other people endure. Sooner or later, the wave will come along and knock down what we have worked so hard to build up. When that happens, only the person who has somebody's hand to hold will be able to laugh. Shabbat Shalom.
Lovely. I just wanted to add, this week I had reached out to some of my colleagues for photos, maybe memories of Rabbi Daniel Treiser, and not surprisingly, I got a few folks who wanted to sort of tell a couple stories, some fairly funny, and some, of course, really sweet about Rabbi Treiser, and shared some great photos too. And one of them actually, a little bit of TBI trivia, he actually served as Ryan Daniels, if anyone remembers, from 2012, 2013. He was the High Holiday intern here all those years ago. And so he saw it, he sort of chimed in with some nice remarks about Rabbi Treiser as a teacher and sort of a mentor to him when he was here, and shared a nice photo of them standing, not on this beam, I think in 2012, right? The renovation was after? The renovation was between 14 and... Yeah, and so standing on this beam but not this one actually. But it was interesting to sort of see it. And got some other really fun tidbits and trivia as well, which I'm going to share on the 17th. So, but just wanted to say it's really been, for me, obviously, really powerful and really inspiring to hear the stories and have this connection, obviously, with my predecessor. So it's a lovely thing. And so we hope to see everyone on the 17th. And with that, we're going to conclude with
Adon Olam,
Adon Olam on page 625.
and we're going to do the classic Adon Olam tonight.
Is there a
That's
classic?
There is a classic.
They're all classics.
Yes,
Let's rise
there are.
together in song. Let's rise together.
Why don't we do 1, 2, and 5? It's a long song with a lot of verses. Adon Olam Asher Malach B'terem Kol Yetzir Nivra Le'eit Nasa B'chefso Kol Hazai Melech Shemo Nikra V'yacharei Kichlot HaKol Levado Yimloch Nora Vehu Haya Vehu Hove Vehu Yeh Betifara Beyado Afki Ruchi Be'edishan Be'aira Ve'im Ruchi Geviati Adonai li Velo ira. Oh, that's a beautiful challah.
It was absolutely beautiful, just fresh out of the, not my
Hamotzi lechem min haaretz, we give thanks to God for bread. Our voices rise in song together as our joyful prayer is said. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz, b'tei avon. Shabbat Shalom.